Man, this whole Akai situation is getting really dicey, and we're going to go ahead and talk about it today. And I actually found out some more info too, and I want to mention that in here as well. So you might want to watch the whole thing. And no cuts, no breaks. We're just going to talk today. Let's get to it. Bolo! All right, before we get started, make sure you guys go ahead and get my drum kits. They are very cheap and they sound very good. So if you need some drums, like some trap drums, and I got a boom bap kit as well, go ahead and click that link in the description and go ahead and get my drum kits. They're only $10 per kit, so they're cheap. So just go ahead and get them. Also, if you guys need some equipment, like go to my link right now and hit that zounds.com link and get some equipment from the site. They have a ton of stuff on the site that is no credit or background checks. You guys can go ahead and get it with no credit or background check and just pay it off over time if you don't have the bread. Now, if you do have the bread, just go ahead and get it, but use my link in the description so you guys can go ahead and get some equipment today. All right? Click my link. Now, one thing I did want to talk about was the sound of these MPCs. These things do not sound like the older MPCs, but there's a reason to that. And one of the main reasons to that is Roger Lynn. Roger Lynn is not in the equation anymore with these MPCs. And there was a very interesting article that I came across this morning that I read that kind of detailed why he's not a part of this. Now, I'm a person that owns MPCs. I have owned some of the older MPCs, and I have the newer MPCs. And to be honest with you guys, I did get this MPC SE in advance from Akai. However, I would not be of any service to you guys if I just swung one way with this situation. I have to report what I hear and what I know, and I have to be true to myself and have to be true to you guys so you guys can get an understanding of what is kind of going on with this situation. Now, you got to excuse me today as well. I was eating some chicken wings the other day, and I'm not a flats guy. I was eating some flats, a piece of the bone broke, and it's jabbed me down into my gum. So if it sounds a little weird or if I'm gathering saliva during this, it's because of that, because this shit hurts. I ain't gonna lie to you guys, it hurts, but I want to talk to you guys about it because I really couldn't really talk over the weekend like that because this thing is hurting, but I had to address this. Now, these new MPCs do not sound like the older MPCs, but I'm going to tell you this. They still sound better than anything else out there. They sound better than any program. When you take any program and just add the drums in or add the sounds in and just leave everything dry and just, you take that and put that in these MPs and export them out, these things sound better than any computer software out, okay? And the MPC software, dry, without any processing or anything on there, you take a session from anywhere else, you import that in to that MPC software, like the MIDIs and everything. I'm not saying the waveforms, but I'm talking about just like the MIDI information and putting the same sounds and everything like that and exporting that. It even sounds better on the MPC software. Don't know how they do it, but the programming of it, they just sound better than anything out. So let's get that out the way, okay? They sound better. They sound fuller. Every time I go to the studio, I bring out my MP. Everybody notices the sound immediately, okay? So let's get that out the way. However, they do not have the same sound characteristics as some of the older MPCs, and that's due to some of the components and some of the things that were used back in the day, and including programming, which is a big thing. Now, I feel the conversation that Brother EA Ski and Brother Sight had yesterday on Sight's Live, which you guys can check that out on his page. He has a live where him and EA Ski actually sit down and talk about it because there was some, they got together because I think Sight was on one of his lives and he basically said something about Ski, and then Ski heard about it, and then they got on there like two men and basically hashed it out, and they actually had a very good conversation about Akai. And for me, one thing about me is I'm going to report on what needs to be said about these instruments, okay? Because even though I did get an advanced unit of the MPC SE, I would not be true to myself or be true to y'all if I just reported all the good things about it and not report the things that are not bad about it, which I actually did when I actually talked about it after I got the MPC SE. And one thing about it is I want to be able to report fairly on this because I am a MPC guy. I've had an MPC since I think I got my first one in 2002, I believe. I think it was 2002. I think I got the MPC XL in 2002, and then in 2005 I got the MPC 1000. In 2006 I got the MPC 2500. And then from there I went and got the MPC Studio later on down the line, then the MPC X, and then the MPC Live 2, and then from there the MPC Key 61, and then now the MPC SE. Okay, so I've had my fair share, and I went through pretty much a good little bit of having some older MPs, and I can say that those older MPs do sound a little bit different. Okay, now I did not own a 3000. I did not own a 60. I've heard them, but I did not own them. But I can say that my 2500 has a different sound, and it sounds a little bit better. Maybe because of the parts that are inside of it, maybe because of the programming. But when you take a little bit of a deeper dive into this situation, I understand both sides. I understand the side of Ski saying, hey, they should focus more on the sonics and really getting this machine sounding the way it's supposed to be, because that's what he thought it was going to be from previous conversations. But on the flip side of it, we might not have the sound, but we have a whole bunch of features that makes producing on these a lot better. And I'm telling you guys, it's a lot better. Now, I know some of you guys have older MPCs and you guys might use the JJOS, which makes things a lot better. That JJOS is very dope on those older MPCs. But come on now, touchscreen. We can do a ton of effects in here. Basically, we have a computer inside of this amazing box. Okay? We can do everything inside of these MPCs now in standalone mode at that. And now we have a software that goes along with it that works pretty good, even though the software needs to have a linear arranger. Hopefully that comes soon. But as far as standalone, you can do so much with these new boxes, but it comes with a compromise because it doesn't sound as warm and fat as some of the older MPCs. But there's a reason why. From what we have learned, Roger Lynn is not in the equation anymore. And reading the article that I just got out of one of the MPC forums, it kind of details why he's not in the equation anymore and why he's not getting paid anymore like a royalty. Because I'm going to be honest with you guys. This whole MPC Akai situation needs to be made a movie. Because this thing has lies, deceit, backdooring, money, everything that you can have in a movie. An inventor who invented something that basically doesn't get paid for it anymore. It has a lot of stuff that could be made into a movie. A lot of stuff. And if they had some real actors and really made this suspenseful, this could be a very, very, very good movie. Because it has a lot. It has companies within companies. It's crazy. It has theft. It has a lot of stuff that goes on. And I know that a lot of people have been getting information or whatever, but this actual article, I'm actually going to put a link in the description for you guys to read this article. And it basically shows how they basically weeded out Roger Lynn in this situation. And even the guy who wrote the article actually made some points of why Roger might not be getting paid anymore. But, I don't know. I don't know how the contract was structured or whatever like that. But I do know that this concept of the MPCs came from Roger Lynn. Okay? We do, pretty much all of us knows that. And sadly, in the 90s, they split up, they got bought out, and then companies changed names. Then they changed the name again, and then there was another company that was formed while they still had the same staff and everything else. It was crazy. And some of the technology that Roger Lynn actually had in the MPs actually kind of stayed, but it was no way for him to kind of copyright everything because he was using programs or he was actually using languages to develop the programs. Like he was using BASIC and he was using the Intel 8080, which if you guys know, BASIC was a language where you can program your own software. So I used BASIC when I was a kid to make my own program back in the day. And I made like a really cheap little program when I was like 9 years old. And it was like a math program. And it took me like 3 weeks to put everything in there. And I programmed my own stuff using BASIC. I never used the Intel. And then later on in college, when I first got to college, I was using C++. But at that time, I only knew about Pascal and BASIC. But they were programs where you could make a string of lines and you can make your own programs with it. But with that being said, since those programs were so widely used, you cannot necessarily like take ownership of it in a sense, because if it is, you would basically have to pay a royalty back to the people who actually made those languages so you could program. So it was some things that Lynn could get a royalty for, but then once you start making program changes, then you kind of weed out the actual person who actually made it. So it's a whole drama. I'm going to leave a link to the whole article, which you need to read the whole article. It's not that long. And the dude actually gives sources in the article as well that tells you about what kind of happened. And to actually answer the question that I had is like, why is everybody else able to take Roger Lynn's design with the 16 pads and they're able to make other software? Like the Machine has 16 pads, the Roland has 16 pads. A lot of these softwares have 16 pads, but nobody ever got sued. It's because it's because that you cannot basically like copyright that in a sense. You know what I'm saying? You can't do it. But it's all in the article. I'm not going to go too in depth with that, but I'm going to put the link in the article. I'll put the article in the link so you guys can go ahead and see that. But moving on, the sound. Basically, the components inside of the unit doesn't really make or break the sound. It's actually how everything is programmed. And back in the day, well, it's not that long ago, but back in the late 90s, early 2000s, they changed the programming and they changed around the components, and they ultimately took out a few things to try to, appease the consumer. And with that, you got a little bit of a weaker sound, but you got a whole bunch of extra effects and stuff like that. So that was basically the trade-off on this whole situation, which I'm cool with it either way because I know how to mix pretty well and I know how to pick sounds. Because regardless of what you use, if you don't have the right sounds, I don't care how good the converters are or whatever, if you don't use the right stuff and you don't know what you're doing, it's not going to sound good anyway. You could take something that has bad converters, and if you kind of know what you're doing, you can pretty much make it sound pretty decent. Now, with the whole thing with these new X's and SEs and, people are saying, hey, they don't sound as good. Yeah, they don't. They don't sound as good as the older machines, but if you have never really used the MP, you wouldn't know how they were supposed to sound anyway. So you'll be pretty happy with how they sound because they still sound very good. But to people like me, who is kind of like an OG in the game right now, me pulling out my 2500 and playing the same 808s, same snares, hi-hats, and playing it on my X, I do hear a sound difference. It's just a different sound. I believe my 2500 hits a little bit harder at the same volume and everything. And it just has a different type of a sound to it that just sounds more of what I'm used to hearing, you know. That's why, hence, I came back to Akai, even though I was using Reason at first. I was using Cubase. I was using all that stuff. It just didn't give me the sound that I wanted, and I like sound over anything. And so that's why I can feel ski side on, and I can feel sight side on, because you got to look at it. We're getting a whole unit for $2,500. We're getting all these sounds. We're getting all these effects. We're getting all this stuff, and we're getting this for a very cheap price, because even back in the day, those MPCs were very expensive. And with inflation, some of those things were basically like right now, it's times would have been $10,000 or $11,000. Very expensive, but we're getting everything for $2,500. Pretty much everything. I don't know why they didn't add in the Air Flavor Pro and the Mini D. I think they should have just added those in. I don't know why they didn't add those in, but that's not for me to know or for me to even find out. It's just, that's what they wanted to do, I guess. But for all you guys out there who do have MPCs, the new ones, you're not totally missing out, because they still sound great. You can do so much more with them right now. The workflow is incredible. But if you're like a real audio person, you're looking for that classic sound, you can go and get you an older MPC and get that classic sound, but the workflow is not going to be as fast, and you're not going to have as many effects and everything in it, because it's going to be an older machine. But if you're into sound, that's what it is. Now, of course, we would want to have the newer MPCs to have that classic sound, which, you know, they tried to add the vintage modes and stuff like that in it, but it still doesn't sound like the older ones. Could they add that classic sound to it? I believe they could. Are they? I don't know, because when you have to add something, that means you have to add new components, you have to add new software, you have to add all this stuff like that, and most of the times that means a price hike. And you guys already are basically saying, I don't want to be paying $2,500, because at the end of the day, to me personally, I think this is a consumer thing. I think if consumers really wanted those like units to sound really, really, really good, I think Akai would have probably took a stance and probably would not have given us all of the sounds and stuff like that. And they would have focused on more of making this thing sonically sound good. But if you go into the forums, you see, hey, I would love to see this. Hey, I would love to see that. Hey, I'd love to see this. Hey, I want this. Why y'all don't have that? Why don't have this? And it's all technical stuff. It has nothing to do with sound. We want linear bass recording. We want to be able to add this. We want to be able to do this. We need more effects. We need more of that. That's what people are asking for. It's the consumers who are driving this. And a lot of consumers are getting younger. So, of course, what do they got to do? They got to appease to a younger crowd, because, to be honest with you, it's more young people coming up than older people. You know what I'm saying? So as a business, they have to move on what the consumers want, because if you ultimately don't give the consumers what they want, they're going to fall into where a lot of companies fell into, and that is they just fell off. And no company wants to fall off. Okay, Akai has been a staple for so many years. A lot of us didn't know some of the financial hardships they had. And even during the time when Newmark did take over Akai, they did do some good things, but there was somebody in the article that was named as a thief. And I'm not going to really say nothing, because I seen how that whole Cardi B and Tasha K thing went. I don't want no parts of that. So you guys can read the article yourselves, and you can kind of understand what kind of happened with that and why these things kind of changed. And like I said before, he does have sources on what he's saying in the article, which I can thank him for that, for having sources, not just speaking out the ass like some people do. But whether you guys are somebody who are looking for an older unit or a new unit, I will say this. The new units are my way to go because my workflow is so much faster in it. And then plus, I kind of know some tricks and trades to getting it sounding the way I need my stuff to sound. Now, if you guys are into the older stuff, that's cool. Go ahead and get the older stuff and make your stuff bang out. You know what I'm saying? It's just easier to mix and easier to do stuff like that. But with these new units, they sound very good. They sound better than anything that's out right now. I'm just going to be totally honest with you. My humble opinion. I use the machine. It sounds good, but it has its own sound. The MPCs are just a little bit bigger, a little bit more rounder, a little bit more warmer. They still sound very good. It's just that other 10% that we as older MPC guys are noticing that, it takes a little bit more to kind of get that out. But, that's the trade-off. The trade-off is, hey, if you want these other features, you want this to basically be a computer, you know what I'm saying, with pads on it, we're going to have to trade out a few components. We're going to have to do a few things, and we're going to have to, basically compromise on the sound a bit. But, I could be right and I could be wrong. That's the thing about it. And I want to say this, like, whether you're right or you're wrong, you have an opinion. And if you have an opinion, there's nothing wrong with you voicing your opinion. I think that a lot of people get, too hurt when people express their opinions these days. I believe everybody should be able to express their opinion. And then if you're wrong, you need to stand corrected. If you're right, you don't need to gloat over it. You just need to just say, okay, look, I was right. You know what I'm saying? But I think we all need to come together in this, audio community, especially us, the MPC guys. We all should be able to sit down, have this conversation, understand each other, and put all these basic differences aside, and let's just get to what is important is the music. And I think that it's been a lot being said over the past couple of weeks. I know some people are happy about this release, some people are not. But at the end of the day, Akai has done a lot for us, even through the stuff that it's even been through, and for some of the people been through. And, I definitely want to hear from Roger Lynn's side. I want to see, what he has to say. And I definitely want to hear from people from Akai from back in the day to see what they have to say, because this has to be brought to the forefront for us now to know what happened and what can be used to be pushed forward. Because I think that if this was something that Roger did start, I think he should have been involved with it. I didn't know too much about it until Ski put that stuff out, which he's been reporting on that pretty much daily. And, Ski is somebody who I very much respect. He's somebody that is a platinum producer. He does music like me and him. We actually do this music thing. We actually still are involved with label stuff. We still work with artists. We still do this stuff as a profession. I don't do anything else but, YouTube and music. That's pretty much it. And people know how hard YouTube is, and I still do music on top of that. So I do a lot of work. And I still have a family, and I still, have time for myself, but I still do this on a daily basis, okay? And I understand him. He still does documentaries. He's working with well-known artists. And he, back in the day, was a huge person on the music scene. He helped a lot of people out that you don't know. I'm pretty sure he's going to tell his story. And at the end of the day, he's somebody who I respect because I used to listen to his music back in the day, and it's just an honor for me to know him and to know all of the OGs in the game and to learn and study from them as well. And it's an honor for me to know all of the new power players. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Andy over at Akai. Shout out to the people over at Akai. Shout out to all of the people, even on YouTube, all of the people who make beats and upload stuff over there on YouTube. Like, everybody is making this community stronger. And I think that we should all understand that we are all in this together, regardless of our differences or how we feel. But I think that, we need to get back to what is the most important thing, and that is just making music. You know what I'm saying? So I know this is a little bit long. I hope you guys can watch the whole thing. And I hope you guys learned something from it. If you guys have anything to say, go ahead and put it in the comment section. Make sure you guys read the article if you can. And let me know what you think. And if you guys want to have any more discussions, we can do that as well. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you guys learned something from it. And like I always say, peace out.